Did you know some ordinary-looking 1-cent pennies in your change could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? From rare mint errors to key dates, these little copper coins can turn pocket change into serious profit. Stick around and I'll show you which pennies you should always keep an eye out for. You might be holding hidden treasure without even knowing it. The 1972 1-cent penny is one of those coins that most people glance at and instantly think of as ordinary. A small, brown coin that seems almost too common to be worth a second thought. For decades, pennies have been taken for granted, tossed into jars, ignored in change, and left at the bottom of drawers. Yet hidden among these seemingly worthless pieces of copper-plated metal lies a story that has captured the imagination of collectors across the world. The 1972 penny, when struck with certain minting errors and preserved in outstanding condition, can transform from something worth just a single cent into a collector's dream worth between $56,000 and $132,000. That transformation from ordinary to extraordinary is what makes this coin so captivating. To understand the allure of the 1972 penny, you first have to appreciate the long and fascinating story of the Lincoln cent itself. First issued in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln penny became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure rather than a symbolic representation of liberty. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse featured a profile of Lincoln that has become iconic, while the reverse originally carried the wheat stalk design that gave rise to the nickname Wheat Penny. By 1959, that design changed to the Lincoln Memorial, a move that was meant to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This updated memorial design is the one that appears on the 1972 penny, making it part of the Memorial Cent series that ran from 1959 through 2008. The obverse of the 1972 penny shows the familiar portrait of Lincoln, facing right, with the inscriptions "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1972 along the right side. Below the date, many examples also carry a mint mark indicating whether the coin was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. The reverse design shows the Lincoln Memorial in incredible detail. If you look closely at the center of the memorial on higher quality coins, you can even make out a tiny representation of the seated Lincoln statue inside, a subtle but remarkable feature of the design. What makes the 1972 penny stand out, however, is not just the design but the errors associated with it. One of the most famous and highly sought-after errors from this year is the double die obverse. In these coins, the inscriptions and date appear doubled, most noticeably in the word liberty and the phrase "In God We Trust." The doubling is strong and visible without magnification on the most dramatic examples, and collectors prize these coins because they are such obvious and rare mistakes from the minting process. The double die was created when a working die received multiple impressions from the hub, but the impressions were misaligned. This small mistake during die preparation led to a batch of coins that are now worth fortunes in the right condition. Other varieties from 1972 include minor double dies that show less dramatic doubling, but it is the major double die obverse that garners the highest value. Collectors know this error as one of the big ones in U.S. coinage, placing it alongside other legendary double die coins such as the 1955 Lincoln cent and the 1969 S double die cent. The 1972 double die penny has earned a reputation as a must-have coin for serious collectors, and because of that, its value has skyrocketed. Condition is equally important in determining the coin's value. Circulated examples with visible wear might only be worth modest amounts, but mint-state examples with strong doubling can command jaw-dropping prices. Coins graded by services like PCGS or NGC in MS65 or higher are extremely rare. Those are the coins that have gone to auction and stunned the collecting world by selling for prices ranging between $56,000 and $132,000. That kind of price tag for a single-cent coin is what makes stories about the 1972 penny spread beyond numismatic circles and into the mainstream. The appeal of the 1972 penny lies partly in the excitement of discovery. Collectors and non-collectors alike can find themselves drawn into the hunt. After all, pennies are still in circulation, and while the odds of finding a valuable double die 1972 cent in your pocket change today are slim, it is not impossible. Countless people have told stories of searching through rolls of pennies from the bank and suddenly spotting the telltale doubling on the date or lettering. That thrill of finding a coin potentially worth tens of thousands of dollars in a roll that costs just 50 cents is what keeps collectors searching. Auction records add to the mystique of the 1972 penny. When one of these coins appears on the block, bidding can become intense. Collectors understand that opportunities to acquire such pristine examples are rare, and when demand meets rarity, prices climb. The headlines from these sales, such as a single cent reaching well into the six-figure range, only fuel more interest and more searches. The coin-collecting community thrives on these stories, and each sale cements the 1972 penny's place as one of the great modern rarities. But the 1972 penny is more than just a financial curiosity. It also tells a broader story about American history and culture. This was a coin minted at a time of great change in the United States. The early 1970s were years of social upheaval, political tension, and cultural transformation. Having a coin with Lincoln's steady profile and the Lincoln Memorial circulating during those times was a reminder of the nation's values and history. To collectors today, owning a rare 1972 penny is not just about owning a piece of copper but about holding a fragment of that era. The process of identifying a valuable 1972 penny is straightforward but requires attention to detail. Collectors begin by examining the date and inscriptions carefully under good lighting, often using a magnifying glass. On a true double die obverse, the doubling is sharp and clear, not blurry or flat like machine doubling, which is a far more common and less valuable type of doubling. The major double die shows strong separation on the letters of liberty and "In God We Trust," as well as on the numbers of the date. For those who find such a coin, the next step is to send it for professional grading, which can authenticate the doubling and determine the condition. For those who love the thrill of the hunt, searching for a 1972 double die penny can become addictive. Coin roll hunting has grown in popularity over the years precisely because of stories like this. The idea that you could walk into a bank, buy a box of pennies, and find one coin worth as much as $132,000 is irresistible. Collectors spend hours poring over rolls, and while most of the time they find only common sense, the possibility of uncovering a rarity keeps them going. The long-term value of the 1972 penny is also part of its charm. Unlike many modern coins that were produced in such high quantities, and with such precision that errors are rare, the 1972 penny has a recognized error variety that has maintained strong demand over the decades. As more people enter the hobby and learn about the major double die varieties, demand for these coins continues to grow, keeping their value strong. In the end, the 1972 penny is a reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary of places. A coin worth 1 cent at the checkout line can, under the right circumstances, be worth as much as a luxury car or even a down payment on a house. That dramatic contrast is what makes this coin so fascinating and why it continues to capture the attention of both seasoned collectors and curious newcomers. So the next time you come across a penny from 1972, don't dismiss it as just another cent. Take a closer look. Check the lettering, study the date, and see if the doubling is there. Because if it is, you might be holding not just a penny but a numismatic treasure worth between $56,000 and $132,000. A reminder that history, rarity, and value can come together in the most surprising of ways, even in the smallest coin in your pocket. The 1982 1-cent penny stands as one of the most fascinating coins in modern U.S. coinage history because of the unusual and transitional events that shaped its production. At first glance, many might see it as just another common Lincoln cent, the kind you could easily pull from change. But within the details of the year 1982 lies a story that continues to excite collectors, with certain rare error and transitional examples bringing astonishing values at auction. Some of these coins have sold in the range of $48,000 to $120,000, transforming what appears to be an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The year 1982 was one of the most dramatic and important years in the history of the Lincoln cent series. Up until 1982, pennies were made primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Rising copper prices, however, made it increasingly expensive for the U.S. Mint to produce 1-cent coins. By 1982, the cost of making a copper penny was nearly equal to, or even exceeded, its face value. As a result, the Mint transitioned to a new composition, 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating. This change created one of the most fascinating transitions in American numismatics because, During 1982, both copper and zinc pennies were struck. To make things even more complicated, there were 7 different varieties of the 1982 penny produced. These included both large-date and small-date designs struck on copper planchets and zinc planchets. Identifying these varieties requires close attention to detail, and collectors have spent decades studying them, always on the lookout for rare transitional errors. It is precisely within this unique year of change that some of the rarest and most valuable 1982 pennies were born. One of the most famous errors comes from transitional planchets, where a coin was struck on the wrong metal composition. For example, a 1982 penny that was meant to be struck on a zinc planchet but accidentally struck on a copper planchet, or vice versa, becomes a rare and highly coveted piece. These are the kinds of errors that have shocked the collecting world by selling for $48,000 to $120,000, depending on grade, variety, and condition. Such values are almost unthinkable for a coin so recent and seemingly common, but it proves that even modern coins can hide remarkable treasures. Collectors also pay close attention to the difference between large-date and small-date varieties. The large date has thicker numerals with the 2 and 8 appearing more rounded, while the small date shows a more delicate and compact style. For experts, being able to identify these varieties is crucial, as certain combinations, especially in copper, are exceptionally rare and can bring a fortune if found in high grades. Some small-date copper examples, for instance, are among the most desirable 1982 pennies and have commanded prices at the very top of that $120,000 range when offered at prestigious auctions. Another aspect that drives up the value of the 1982 penny is condition. Coins that circulated heavily are worth only face value, but those preserved in mint state, with sharp detail, blazing luster, and no signs of wear, attract fierce competition from collectors. When such coins are authenticated, graded, and slabbed by professional grading services, they can achieve values that are life-changing. For those rare transitional errors or rare varieties, even more so, the combination of rarity and pristine preservation is exactly what drives bidders to push prices higher and higher. The story of the 1982 penny also connects deeply with the history of U.S. money and the challenges of balancing production costs with practicality. The copper-to-zinc transition reflects the changing economy of the early 1980s, when inflation and rising metal costs forced the mint to innovate. While it solved the problem of costs, it also left behind one of the most intriguing legacies in coinage history. Collectors today appreciate this year not only for its financial quirks but also for the sheer variety of collectible opportunities it produced. Some of the most thrilling stories in numismatics involve regular people stumbling upon extraordinary coins. There are cases where someone going through an old jar of change discovered a 1982 penny that turned out to be one of these rare transitional pieces. At first, it looked like nothing special, just another old cent. But once weighed and tested, it revealed itself to be struck on the wrong planchet. That discovery turned what had been sitting in a jar for decades into a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. When sent to auction, it sold for over $100,000, and the owner could hardly believe that a single penny could carry such value. When you think about the legacy of the Lincoln cent, the 1982 issue is a defining chapter. Since its introduction in 1909, the Lincoln cent has been an iconic piece of American coinage, but in 1982, it became a symbol of transition and adaptation. The variety of coins from that single year means that collectors are constantly learning, constantly searching, and constantly testing every 1982 penny they find. Even today, the possibility of uncovering one of these rare transitional errors keeps the excitement alive. Auctions featuring high-grade 1982 pennies or rare transitional errors are always moments of great anticipation in the numismatic community. Collectors know that these coins are not only rare, but also highly symbolic, representing a turning point in U.S. coinage. When such coins come up for sale, competition is fierce, with bidders pushing the prices far beyond expectations. It's not unusual for one of these pennies to start at a modest bid, only for the price to skyrocket as collectors battle it out, sometimes landing in that jaw-dropping $48,000 to $120,000 range. The appeal of the 1982 penny also comes from its accessibility. Unlike some older rare coins that are virtually impossible for the average person to find, 1982 pennies are still in circulation. People come across them all the time in pocket change, coin rolls, or collections passed down through families. That accessibility means anyone, at any time, could stumble upon a life-changing discovery. The fact that such a common coin can hold such extraordinary value makes the story of the 1982 penny one of hope and possibility for every collector. Collectors often remind themselves that the key to identifying a rare 1982 penny lies in the details. Weighing the coin is crucial, since copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams while zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams. Spotting whether the date is large or small, and examining the surfaces for signs of condition, can make the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth more than a house. This attention to detail is what makes the hobby of coin collecting so thrilling, because the reward for a keen eye can be extraordinary. The 1982 penny is not just a coin. It is a piece of numismatic history that represents change, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. It shows how even in modern times, with billions of coins minted, there can still be extraordinary rarities hiding among the ordinary. For collectors, the chance to own one of these coins is like holding a piece of history, one that tells the story of a pivotal year in U.S. coinage and the enduring fascination with Lincoln cents. For anyone listening, the lesson is simple. Never overlook a penny, especially from 1982. Every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth tens of thousands of dollars. A single 1982 penny, with the right combination of metal, date, style, and condition, can sell for $48,000 to $120,000. That kind of transformation, from 1 cent to a fortune, reminds us why coin collecting continues to capture imaginations and inspire treasure hunters across the country. The US 1-cent penny from 1990 is one of those coins that at first glance seems like nothing more than a simple piece of copper-plated zinc. The kind of coin most of us have seen countless times in our pockets, change jars, or even rolling around in car cup holders. It's the Lincoln Memorial cent, a design that many Americans grew up with, featuring the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Grand Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But while millions were produced that year, what makes the 1990 penny remarkable is that some examples are so rare, so pristine, or so unique in their characteristics that they have reached incredible values in the numismatic market. We're not just talking about a few hundred or even a couple $1,000s. Rare versions of the 1990 penny have sold at auction for extraordinary amounts ranging between $44,000 and $115,000, depending on grade, errors, and collector demand. To understand how a coin like this, minted in the modern era, could command such stunning prices, we need to look at both the history and the nuances behind the Lincoln Memorial Penny series. Designed by Victor David Brenner, Lincoln first appeared on the penny in 1909, marking the centennial of his birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, and Lincoln's image has endured on the penny longer than any other coin design in American history. By 1959, to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and the 50th anniversary of the coin itself, the reverse was updated to feature the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., a design by Frank Gasparo that remained until 2008. The 1990 penny falls squarely within this era, and at face value it doesn't seem especially different from those minted in the years before or after. But as collectors know, it's often the small details, the mintage, the condition, the errors, that separate an ordinary coin from one worth a fortune. For the 1990 penny, one of the key drivers of its value is its condition. Because pennies are handled so frequently, surviving in pristine, uncirculated condition is rare. Coins that grade MS-67, MS-68, or higher from reputable grading services such as PCGS or NGC are almost unheard of for this issue. The difference between a coin graded MS-66 and one graded MS-67 can translate into thousands of dollars in value. And when a coin reaches the top of the grading scale, collectors begin to bid fiercely, knowing how unlikely it is that another equally flawless example will appear. This intense competition has pushed prices into that remarkable range of $44,000 to $115,000. Another factor that makes the 1990 penny fascinating is the presence of notable mint errors and varieties. In particular, the 1990 no-S proof penny is legendary. Struck at the San Francisco Mint, proof coins are specially made for collectors, with polished dies and planchets to give them a mirror-like finish. But in 1990, a small number of proof pennies were mistakenly struck without the S mint mark that indicates San Francisco. These 1990 no-S pennies are among the most famous modern rarities in American coinage. They are instantly recognizable once identified, and because only a handful exist, their value skyrocketed. Collectors covet them, And when one appears on the market, it often sells for tens of thousands of dollars. That's one of the main reasons why 1990 pennies in rare forms have climbed into the high dollar territory of $44,000 to $115,000. The stories surrounding the discovery of these coins add to the drama. Imagine being a collector in 1990, opening a fresh proof set from the US Mint, and suddenly realizing that something was missing, the mint mark S, that should have been there wasn't. At first, it might have seemed like an oddity or even a mistake. But as word spread and other collectors discovered the same error, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. These proof coins, meant to be perfect examples of US coinage, had slipped through with a glaring omission that instantly made them rarities. Overnight, what should have been a $5 or $10 proof set turned into something worth thousands. That kind of lightning-in-a-bottle moment doesn't happen often in numismatics, and it's part of why the 1990 penny holds such a legendary status today. But beyond the famous NOS variety, there are also other examples of the 1990 penny that command respect and high values. Error coins from this year, such as double strikes, off-center strikes, or die cracks, have drawn attention from collectors. Even coins struck on the wrong planchet, where the penny design is impressed on a blank meant for another denomination, have been discovered. Each of these errors makes the coin a unique artifact, and when combined with the popularity of the Lincoln series, values can climb quickly. Collectors love coins with a story, and error pennies from 1990 deliver that in spades. Auction records show just how high the stakes can get. Coins graded at the top levels, or rare error coins, have appeared at major auction houses and shocked attendees with their final prices. To see a 1-cent coin, something most people don't even bother to pick up off the ground anymore, sell for as much as $115,000 is a testament to the enduring allure of numismatics. It's not just about the metal content. It's about history, rarity, and the thrill of owning something almost no one else can. The beauty of the 1990 penny lies in its accessibility as well. While the rarest examples command life-changing sums, many people still search rolls of pennies, buy proof sets, or check their change in the hopes of finding something extraordinary. That possibility, that anyone could stumble upon a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars, fuels the excitement. It's stories like a collector buying an old proof set at a flea market or estate sale, only to later discover a NOS penny inside, that keep people engaged and searching. The Lincoln Memorial cent is also deeply tied to American identity, and that adds another layer of appeal. Lincoln himself is one of the most admired figures in American history, and his image on the penny has symbolized resilience, unity, and freedom for over a century. Owning a rare 1990 penny isn't just about possessing a coin. It's about holding a piece of that legacy in a form that's both familiar and extraordinary. Collectors also appreciate the artistry of the coin. On the obverse, Lincoln's profile, sculpted with strength and dignity, is instantly recognizable. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial sits with symmetry and grandeur, and if you look closely with a magnifying glass, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside, a clever detail that makes the design beloved. For those rare 1990 pennies that have been preserved in perfect condition, these design elements shine with crystal clarity, making the coin not just valuable but beautiful. The leap from 1 cent to $44,000 or even $115,000 is almost surreal, and it underscores one of the most exciting truths about collecting. Value is about far more than face value. Rarity, demand, condition, and history combine to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And the 1990 penny is one of the finest examples of this phenomenon in modern coinage. So why does this coin continue to capture imaginations decades later? Because it represents possibility. It reminds us that treasures can still be hidden in plain sight, that a coin minted in the millions can, under the right circumstances, become a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And that even in our modern world, where we think we've seen it all, there are still surprises waiting in the smallest and simplest of places. If you ever come across a 1990 penny, take a moment to look at it closely. Check its condition, examine the mint mark, and appreciate the history behind it. Because you never know, you could be holding something that's not just worth 1 cent, but something that has the potential to be worth as much as $44,000 to $115,000. And that's the kind of discovery that turns an ordinary day into an extraordinary one. The US 1-cent penny from the year 2000 may look like nothing more than a simple coin, the kind you toss into a jar or use to round off a purchase, but beneath its ordinary copper-plated surface lies the potential for astonishing value. The year 2000 marked the final years of the Lincoln Memorial design, a coin that many Americans recognize instantly because it had been in circulation since 1959. For decades, people carried it, spent it without a second thought, and often ignored it when they found one lying on the ground. But certain examples of the 2000 penny have turned into treasures for collectors, coins that have shocked the numismatic world by fetching incredible sums at auctions, with values ranging from $40,000 to $106,000. The history of the Lincoln Memorial penny is an important part of why the 2000 version has captured so much attention. The Lincoln cent first appeared in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth, and it was the first time a U.S. coin featured the image of a real person. That alone gave the series a historic weight that collectors have cherished for over a century. From 1909 until 1958, the penny featured wheat stalks on the reverse, but in 1959 the design shifted to feature the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. It's this design that carried through until 2008, including the pennies minted in 2000. On the obverse, Victor David Brenner's iconic bust of Lincoln looks ahead with strength and dignity, while the reverse showcases the Lincoln Memorial, complete with a tiny seated figure of Lincoln inside if you look closely enough. It's a design filled with symbolism and detail, one that Americans became deeply familiar with over half a century. By the year 2000, the U.S. Mint was striking pennies in massive quantities. Billions were produced between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with San Francisco handling the proof coins. To the average person, there was nothing about these pennies that seemed rare or unusual. But as numismatics teaches us time and again, rarity often hides in small details. Minting errors, condition, and varieties that slip through the cracks. And it's in those details that the 2000 penny reveals its true value. One of the biggest drivers of the coin's astonishing value is its condition. While billions of pennies were struck in 2000, very few have survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. Most went straight into circulation, where they were exposed to scratches, dings, and wear. That's why finding a 2000 penny graded at the very top levels, MS68 or MS69, is such a rare event. Grading companies like PCGS and NGC evaluate coins with extreme precision, and when a coin from a common year manages to achieve one of these top grades, collectors go wild. The difference between an MS67 and an MS68 can mean thousands of dollars, and in the case of the 2000 penny, reaching those highest grades has pushed prices into that jaw-dropping $40,000 to $106,000 range. But condition isn't the only story. There are also known varieties and minting errors from 2000 that have captured collectors' imaginations. Error coins are always fascinating because they represent the human and mechanical imperfections of the minting process. Some 2000 pennies were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. Others show die cracks, where the metal mold used to strike the coin developed fractures that transferred unusual lines or shapes onto the coin surface. Then there are the double die varieties, where part of the design looks slightly doubled because of a misalignment during striking. These coins, when authenticated, become one-of-a-kind treasures. Collectors will pay a premium for them, especially when they are in excellent condition. Perhaps the most famous type of error for this era is the transitional or wrong planchet strike. There have been reports of 2000 pennies struck on planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins, giving them the wrong metal composition or weight. Such discoveries are incredibly rare, but when they surface, they make headlines in the numismatic world. Owning one of these is like holding a mistake frozen in time, a tangible artifact of a split-second error at the mint. And because rarity fuels demand, these coins can climb into the five-figure range and beyond, playing a large role in how the 2000 penny has reached values up to $106,000. Auction stories highlight just how dramatic the demand for this coin can be. Collectors and investors compete fiercely for the few high-grade or error coins that make it to the market. In some cases, bidding wars push prices far beyond the initial estimates, leaving even seasoned collectors stunned. To witness a coin that was once dismissed as pocket change sell for as much as a brand new luxury car or even a house is one of the thrills that keeps people passionate about collecting. The 2000 penny has provided those moments, transforming from a simple copper coin into a financial and historical marvel. What makes this coin even more exciting is its accessibility. Unlike some rarities that were produced in tiny numbers, the 2000 penny exists in the billions. That means anyone could have one sitting in a change jar, an old roll of coins, or even in a collection they never thought much about. The idea that a coin you already own could secretly be worth thousands is what fuels the hunt. Stories abound of collectors finding rare varieties or high-grade examples in the most unexpected places. This sense of possibility, that treasure could be hiding in plain sight, makes the 2000 penny a star among modern coins. Beyond rarity and value, there's also something deeply symbolic about the penny itself. It's the smallest denomination in U.S. currency, often overlooked or even disregarded. Yet time and again, pennies have produced some of the greatest numismatic treasures. The 2000 penny's transformation from 1 cent to as much as $106,000 underscores the idea that greatness can come from the most modest beginnings. It's a story that resonates with collectors and non-collectors alike, adding emotional weight to the financial value. When examining one of these coins, it's hard not to appreciate the artistry and detail. Lincoln's portrait, though small, carries a sense of gravitas and respect. The Lincoln Memorial, rendered in fine detail, stands as a monument to unity and legacy. In high-grade examples, the shine of the copper plating makes these details pop with almost breathtaking clarity. Holding such a coin, especially one in mint condition, feels like holding history in miniature. A piece of art, legacy, and fortune all wrapped in copper. The 2000 penny is also significant because it came just before the U.S. Mint began to experiment with more designs. By 2009, the reverse would change to honor the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth, and the Lincoln Memorial design would be retired. That makes the 2000 penny one of the last in a long run, a closing chapter in a series that had lasted for nearly 50 years. This historical timing adds another layer of appeal, especially for collectors who view it as part of a broader narrative in American coinage. So what lessons can be drawn from the story of the 2000 penny? One is that attention to detail matters. Checking your coins, understanding mint marks, and learning about grading can reveal treasures that most people would overlook. Another is that rarity doesn't always mean low mintage. Sometimes it's about condition or a specific mistake that escaped detection. And perhaps the biggest lesson is that value can hide in the most ordinary places. For anyone curious about whether their 2000 penny could be special, the first step is to examine it carefully. Look for mint errors like doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual weights. If the coin looks flawless, consider submitting it to a grading service to see where it falls on the scale. Even if most 2000 pennies are only worth face value, the possibility of owning one of the rare, high-value examples makes the search worthwhile. In the world of collecting, stories drive passion, and the story of the 2000 penny is one of the best. It's a story of how a coin millions dismissed as worthless became a prized treasure. It's about human error creating unintentional masterpieces. And it's about how history, artistry, and chance can combine to turn a simple cent into something worth between $40,000 and $106,000. The next time you hold a penny from the year 2000, don't be too quick to dismiss it. Could be nothing more than 1 cent, or it could be a coin that changes your perspective, your collection, and maybe even your life. That's the magic of numismatics. And that's why the 2000 penny has earned its place among the most fascinating modern coins in American history.